welcome to the Voyage Clinics Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. John Sanders, family physician. Our podcast is Voyage Clinics Podcast, and our mission is to just bring health and wellness to the communities and education. And it's awesome. Today, my co-host, I would say, guest is Holly. Holly Hawkins is a friend, and she works with me. She's been awesome. She does biz dev plus front office plus executive, everything. I think you do all the hats. You wear all the hats.
Yep. Anything I can get my hands on.
Holly's awesome. Her dad and I are good pickleball bros, and you're a pretty good pickleball player too, but you're a tennis guy, gal, right?
Right.
Your dad's
much more the
guy
tennis
too.
space than the pickleball space.
Okay. Well, Holly, welcome.
Thank you.
And tell us a little bit about you.
I live in Draper with my husband. We're big outdoorsy people. We love backpacking, climbing, camping. I was just camping.
You were?
Yes.
Oh yeah, girls camp.
Yeah, very fun. No sleep, but very fun. Yeah. I love doing lots of different things, especially business things. I love Voyage and what it stands for. And then tennis lessons. I also do some travel advising stuff. Like I said, hats in Voyage and lots of hats anywhere I can get my hands on them.
You're so cool. That's awesome. Today, we're just going to kind of throw it, kind of an ask me anything thing. So family doc, I do a lot of things and really kind of passionate about a lot of things. And so are you, which is cool. And so I thought it might be fun just to kind of get your perspective and then you to kind of ask me things too. And we can kind of kick the ball around and see kind of where it lands. I don't know that we have kind of a big focus today. What would you say our overall focus might be?
I think specifically I bring a different perspective to Voyage because I am younger. I don't have a lot of health concerns, but I found a lot of benefit being with Dr. John and having the benefit of Voyage just because there's a lot of healthcare that I didn't understand I had questions about that I was able to ask him about. So actually a question that I had was, what are some health maintenance things that I should be thinking of, or people in my demographic of ages 20 to 30, I don't have any kids, that I should be thinking about for not now, but like 20 years down the road? What are the important things I should be doing now to be healthy when I'm your age?
Yeah, so good. So family doctors, we're massively trained in preventive medicine. There's a whole task force behind preventive medicine, actually. There's a United States Preventive Services Task Force, USPSTF. And they crunch data. They do all these analyses of, are we helping people? Are we hurting people? What are people dying from? And how can we prevent those things? So they're really nerdy people. They're like PhDs, and there's some doctors in there as well, or MDs as well, and DOs. And so there are basic guidelines, and most of the cancer and the bad things that happen in people's lives usually happen above 50. So that's good. So 20s to 30s is a great age. Live life, be awesome. But what can you do in your 20s and 30s to prevent stuff in your 40s and 50s? Mostly, I think it's the same answer for probably everybody. Eat right? So what does that mean? Probably less simple processed foods and more whole foods. So meats and grains and vegetables, those are awesome. But the processed stuff, which makes up like 80% of our food supply, is full of a whole bunch of chemicals and crap that's designed to bring you back for more and make you overeat and make you fat and make you all these things. Diabetes, pre-diabetes, all the things. Unless there's an early family history of certain kinds of cancers. So like some people have these Lynch syndrome or these syndromes that are genetic syndromes that can predispose you to early cancers, like early breast cancer, early colon cancer, early, there's a whole bunch with Lynch syndrome, but there are others. So think about your genetics. So if you're 20s to 30s and you have an aunt or a mother or a sibling who has had cancer in their 20s or 30s, then those screening guidelines apply to you. So we should be like screening you for breast cancer. The breast cancer screening guideline is like if you say have a sibling or a first degree relative in their 40s that got breast cancer, you should start screening 10 years prior to the initial diagnosis of that breast cancer. Same thing with colon cancer. We're trying to catch it because some of these do have a genetic predisposition.
Right.
But largely, 20s and 30s are a time to have fun, exercise, eat right, control stress. Like I think often we get used to like overstressing and overextending. Like you were saying, like I do this and I do this and I do this too. And I do this too. And so we tend to overextend. And I think everybody's this way, especially in America. We don't have a really good work-life balance culture.
Right.
We're like, I sacrificed everything when I was your age, so you should too. And so we kind of expect like self-deprivation to, of our people and a poor balance. I love that you said you love to be outdoors and to camp and to hike. And I think that's really clutch too, is spending time in nature and grounding yourself and just being present, getting away from all the dopamine addiction, screens and all that, and spending time away. Like that's clutch stuff too. Mm-hmm. Is
there anything that you wish you knew when you were my age? I'm 22.
Yeah. I wish that I would have. So I don't know, like when I was in your age, I was still, I don't know, I was prepping for med school. I was grinding really hard. I didn't have a balance. It's funny. I lived in Taiwan. I served a mission there, and my Chinese name is Sun Yi Heng, and Heng is Ping Heng de Heng, which means balance. And I've never been in balance. I'm like always off balance, and I'm always stretched thin because I'm like you. I overextend. And so my life is a pattern of overextension and then turtling back and then overextending again and then turtling in. Oh, I'm overextended. I'm way too stressed I need to pull back in. So I kind of wish I would have taken up things like I do now, which like are mushroom foraging and like just breathing, Shinrin Yoku, spending time in nature, just smelling and listening and, with your feet on the ground and just being calm, and grounding into the present and kind of balancing life a little bit. My name has balance in it. Like I suck at that. And so I would have probably addressed that a little sooner. The other thing that I did ever since I was young was I was always like a sports guy. So I would always play the sport. I'd play, basketball, football, and soccer and rugby, and then, pickleball and volleyball. And I played sports like 3 and 4 times a week. Like I was always playing a sport. And maybe that was self-medication. I don't know, but that was high stress back then. But also I think with that play, because I'm a fan of play, I think play is wonderful. There's all kinds of endorphins that are released and stress release. And, when I play sports, I'm an intense player, but I also like somewhat comical. So I like to joke and tease and, trash talk and, have fun with it.
Totally.
So for all the mental wellness that it does, sports over time without proper strengthening and stretching creates injury, which I'm having right now in my 40s. So if your age, I probably would have started doing a little bit more consistent strengthening regimen, especially with like, your VMO and glutes and things like that tend to get weak. And then you're playing your sport and then you're having tendinitis and things like that. Yeah. Stuff like that. Yeah.
I feel like that's something that we now live in the age of social media. And so there's so much information out there about everything, including like sports and working out and all these things, that it almost becomes overwhelming of everyone's feeding you this fire hose of this is what you should be doing now. You should be starting a business. You should be doing this. Like, I wish I would have done all these things. And I feel like very often we get that answer of slow down and just enjoy it, but be purposeful in it. Like make sure you're doing the right things of the basics. I think now we kind of live in a society of like shortcutting. Like what can we do to shortcut to the end solution, where in the kids' terms, it's not that deep. Like it's really just eating right.
It's not that deep, Dad. It's not that deep.
Like it's really just the basics that we've done forever. And so it's refreshing to hear from a doctor say the same opinion. Like it's not about the big gimmicks out there of like doing everything all the time. Instead, it's almost the opposite that will keep you healthy.
That's so cool. It's true. I did some, like I once on my Instagram or something, I looked up like mobility exercises. And there's like a million PhD level like physical therapists that have wonderful content. But now my whole feed is full of of that content and I love it, but then I'm like, well, what should I do now? And there's like a million things to do. And I'm like, well, I just pick one and let's just do that. And so just keeping it simple and being able to pare that down. I would say deliberately hack your algorithms though. Occasionally just look up kittens, like literally, or mushrooms or something that's just like, oh, that's just, slosh for my brain instead of like something I have to go do. Yeah.
Well, that's actually like, I love Pinterest, but I started making like a Pinterest board for working out. I think that's a very common like girl thing. And I also like every time I got on there, I was just seeing all these workouts. And half the time I was like, I don't actually even know if I believe this is how you got in the shape that you are. And I think that's a common thing for all of us. How do you, not only as a doctor, but as kind of an individual, like sift out what you think is actually true information? Like nowadays, anybody can get on there and be an influencer, but they don't necessarily have anything saying that they're truthful in what they're bringing to light. So what do you do in the medical space and just also in life to like feed out all the other people?
Ooh, this is the age of information. It's also the age of misinformation. And it is super hard. Even for me, it is difficult. I think that there are certain credentials. I try to look for some kind of credentials behind people so that when they speak, I'm like, okay, you're speaking from a Stanford University, or, you have some degree of understanding in this space. I do think there are neat people that have neat ideas that are not credentialed though. And I'm just listening, right? And it's cool. But if I'm actually going to implement something or do something, I try to look for credentials in some kind. Like I'm a doctor, I have to go through very rigorous training and then board certification and family medicine. And, it's very rigorous. And I know when I talk to another doctor, a family doctor, I know what their training looks like in America. It's like pretty solid all the way around, pretty well versed in all these different things. And so with that, like credentials, I'm talking to a PhD psychologist, right? I know that they can speak really well to the psychological space. Right. And so I'm like, wow, you're speaking some cool things that are from your education and from your understanding. So yeah, I think it's hard. It's really hard. There's really neat AI tools like Open Evidence AI. It's for physicians and nurse practitioners and people that work in the healthcare space. You have to have what's called a national practitioner, NPI, national practitioner. I forget that last time, but you have to have an NPI in order to sign on to this. And it basically pulls the data from journals, from research, and from universities, and then you can do searches on that. And so it's free to your doctor. So if your doctor doesn't know about this, tell them about Open AI, Open Evidence. I think it's funded. So it's funded through some of the major, I don't remember who. You should look that up on AI. You could probably ask chat right now. But it is funded through some major Ivy League schools. And they're just trying to bring evidence, like open evidence, to our society. And often evidence is paywalled. What does that mean? So New England Journal of Medicine, JAMA, there's a whole bunch of journals that you have to pay a membership every month in order to gain access to their data. Why? That's data. Like that's information for me as a doctor to help my patients.
Totally.
And so it makes it really difficult. Open Evidence AI pierces those paywalls. ChatGPT just pulls information from the internet at large. Right. And so that's hard because AI is only as smart as the information you feed it. So if you're in a world of misinformation, this is why chat sometimes gets it wrong, or whoever you're using as your search engine, or your AI engine rather. And that's hard. That's really hard. But in Open Evidence, it's using the algorithm to look into the actual data that's out there. So I like it because then patients ask me questions that I don't know the answer to all the time. I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about, or not what you're talking about, but I have no idea what your question is. And so, or what the answer is. So then I'll go to Open Evidence and I'll just give them science, right? This is real good science answer to what you're asking me. And I learn and you learn and it's cool. And let's go keep on going forward. It's cool.
Okay, that actually brings this topic. I was talking to somebody yesterday about Voyage and what they do, and he brought up this question of, well, one day, why will I need a doctor if AI is going to know me so well that like I can ask them any health questions? I don't need them to, I don't need to ask a doctor about if a supplement will work for me because it will know me so well. Yeah. What is your thoughts on that as a doctor?
Yeah, so good. So AI is revolutionizing so many industries. And I think it potentially has wonderful potential in family medicine and healthcare in general. We often use it in our clinic to generate like fitness plans for people. Like I got a 46-year-old female who's hasn't worked out in 10 years, who's got these health problems. Let's couch to 5K. Let's create and it does, and it's awesome. So I think it's a wonderful tool. I think it has some really great potential. I think that the AI has already passed some board exams, some medical board exams, so it can learn medicine and spit out the answers and do that. I had a patient today who was using, it starts with a G. Grump.
Oh, I don't know
which one I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Anyway, he was using that one, and he was like, well, gosh, I forget, was it Gronk or Grump or anyway. Gronk thinks that, I have a 60% chance this could be GI and a 25% chance it could be cardiac and, a 1% chance this musculoskeletal. And I'm like, oh. And so I was like, okay, cool. Well, tell me more. Let's talk some more and, talk it through. I think AI has some really wonderful potential in medicine again, and both for patients and for doctors. And I think, why do we need doctors going forward? It's because it's not all about data. It's not all science even. There's a fair amount of art in healthcare. And my case in point is yesterday. So yesterday I saw a gal, and I saw her a week and a half ago. She has this thing that she's been seen in multiple ERs for, multiple clinics, and she's just getting kicked around and she can't get to any answers, and she's really frustrated and struggles. And she went to AI and asked AI what it was, and they don't know. So she's frustrated because the system is not really, she's getting 15-minute visits at the doctor's offices, and the ER is just like, you're not dying, see ya. And so she, and they're treating her like she's crazy. And so she comes to me and she says, I'm having these symptoms. And I'm like, whoa, well, tell me some more. So we spent an hour talking about what's going on with her. A good history, a good story, goes a long way to figuring out what's wrong with someone. And AI, you could feed it a story, but like there's magic in listening to someone and having someone talk to you and hearing not only what they're saying, but what they're showing you. Like physically, there's nuance and art to that process of understanding. So she's talking to me, she tells me it's a big story, and I'm like, okay, cool. Let's order some tests and let's, look into this, and then I'll see you in a week and we'll look at them and we'll go over the next steps. Over the weekend, she had a little urgency and ended up giving her a shot of Toradol and keeping her out of the ER. But that's a whole nother accessibility thing. Awesome with Voyage, but that was cool. But then I saw her the following week, just yesterday, and she says, I'm just having these episodes. It happens at 1 or 2 in the morning. I get up and I feel like I'm panicking and can't breathe, and my lips start tingling, my hands start tingling. She's gone to the ER. They told her she has a hyperventilation syndrome, anxiety, panic ataxia. And I'm like, it doesn't fit. Not at 1 in the morning. It doesn't wake you up.
Right.
And so I keep asking questions and talking, and the story changes a little bit. And I'm like, well, the lab showed that, your insulin was quite low, and you got this done in the morning, right? Yeah. I said, well, are you eating a big sugary dinner? No, my dinner's really healthy. I do Pilates. I'm really fit. I do have kids and stuff. I'm like, well, because, man, sometimes if you eat a sugary dinner, or a lot of carbs before you go to bed, it spikes your blood sugar and then it drops, and then your serum insulin drops too. And then you can kind of feel hypoglycemic in the middle of the night, and it can wake you up. But I've been doing that for years. And would a bowl of ice cream before bed? And I'm like, oh, yeah, that will spike your sugar and then it'll drop and then you feel that way. But I've been doing this for years, doc. Why now? And I'm like, well, insulin resistance, that's exactly what happens over time as you keep doing that over time. She's like, well, I have a weakness for sweets just before bed. And I'm like, well, that's your body's just waking you up because of that. And she's like, but I've never had panic attacks. I've never been a panicky person. Like, what?
Right.
And it doesn't make sense. And I said, you're right. That doesn't make sense. Your sympathetic nervous system will wake you up in the middle of the night, and you'll have a increased heart rate. You might be sweating because your sugar is a little too low and you need to eat something or not eat that sugary thing just before bed. And I said, well, what else is there? Right? There's something else, right? And there was just something in me that was just, there's something else, right? And it's intuition, call it whatever.
Yeah.
But she says, you know what? I have been taking care of my sister-in-law whose husband is dying from colorectal cancer.
Wow.
And he's only like early 40s, like my husband's age. And yeah, she's constantly talking to me every day, and I'm comforting her and talking to her, and she's mourning heavily the loss of her husband who hasn't even died yet. And it's stressing me out. And her husband's like, and your algorithm is full of searches that you've done in this space, further pushing her down the road. So like all of a sudden, like it all clicks in her mind, and she sees it, what's happening to her.
Right.
And she's not crazy, and it's very physiological. There's a really easy explanation for all of this, but putting that nuance together and really hearing and using that intuition to probe a little bit more here, a little bit more there. That's the art of medicine, and AI can't do that. It just can't. It can ask you questions and do this and prompt that, and then you can put in some data, spit out some stuff. And that's cool. That is a level of care that might be reasonably okay for lots of people. But I think the nuance of care for me, I went into healthcare for this. I like connecting with people and helping them and listening to them and hearing them. And it is so satisfying. It is so satisfying.
Well, that's what I was going to say is I don't know many people who would have ever gotten that deep in a visit outside of Voyage. Like they wouldn't have had the time to go in depth to find that. Yeah. I know that for me, we've had multiple things where I'm like, okay, I have this weird thing going on. I have no idea. And I've done all the Google searches. Like I think enough people know, like if you put what you want into Google, you'll get the right answer. Cancer every single time.
Cancer.
Like, you'll think you're dying totally every time.
100%. Or parasites.
Yes. So you run into the doctor and you're like, I think I have cancer. And I think that's something so beautiful with Voyage is there's so many elements that you offer to be able to talk about all of it. Like, why did I even think I had cancer in the first place? Like, we've talked about things of why I was anxious about my health in the first place, which was so helpful for me to see that you cared more than just fixing whatever need I thought I had cancer for, but also taking it deeper to find out probably the anxiety dispositions I had in the first place surrounding that, which is something that is so hard when I'm talking to people about Voyage and about how wonderful it is to get that across to them is just the aspect of you see somebody and you really deeply care to get their whole health taken care of. And it's not just one aspect of their health, it's everything. I remember one of my first visits, I had just gotten off a mission serving in England and I felt horrible. And some lab work came back showing I had a vitamin D deficiency, but I had just also gotten married. And I remember you sitting there and I felt like you looked right into my soul when you were like, is there anything else? Like, how's married life? And I remember feeling like a deer in headlights of like, oh no, like he knows I'm stressed out of my mind right now. And I just remember we had a whole conversation about that. We talked about ways I could de-stress and some new things that I had never thought about. And I just remember leaving. I had only met John probably a few weeks before that I was just astounded. Like my family never went to the doctor growing up. And I left feeling like I had finally been seen, not only for things I had grown up with feeling and never really going to a doctor and having somebody say like, oh, you probably have anxiety. Like that kind of sounds like anxiety to me. But it was so cool walking away and being like, wow, I got everything on my list checked off. Like I got the whatever I thought was causing me cancer. I got like anxiety and I had a whole new realm of things that for years I had only searched into Google or now would probably be put into AI and get spit something out back. But that was kind of what I ended up explaining to this guy who was asking me this was, no, wait, you've got to think of like the deeper reason. And that's exactly what you said of just the connection, like the connection between a doctor. And it made me sad thinking he probably never even thought about that. He's thinking AI would be simpler because he doesn't have a doctor that he sits down with and has that conversation with. You know,
you said that lady probably could go to many, many doctors and never get to the bottom of that whole thing. And it is true. Our current healthcare system is lacking in the care space. And it's a bummer. We're cutting our legs off of our profession, and it is AI-able, and it should be AI'd. If that's the way, if we're going to be robots, we're going to go into a room, we're going to treat people like numbers and we're going to robotize this, then yeah, automate that into AI if that's what you're doing. But consider a change, right? It's really tough. The current system, I don't believe that the current doctors and nurse practitioners and PAs, I don't believe that they're robots. I think they're wonderful, caring humans. Right. But they're plugged into a system that turns them into robots. It turns and churns. I missaid that on purpose because it literally just like churns them like butter, and then pretty much they're just a buttery robot. I don't know how that acronym didn't work out, but they do. They just get churned in this thing, and it's super hard to re-sculpt your brain cells into like not thinking the way that insurance companies and government and the system and the administrators, they all want you to crank through so many patients per hour and do this and code that and robotize it, make it manufactured, and AI can do that and should do that as much as it can, you bet. But when you go into a room and you feel the person across the room for you sincerely like cares about you, it's different. And that care actually creates healing. There's evidence there. If you care about that person, they feel that, they know you care about them, what happens? Trust. This really cool thing. And that trust creates a belief that whatever I inject into you, give you a pill, or put my hand, do whatever I do, helps you and will help you. And that trust improves outcome by 30 to 50%. I just made up the 50, but definitely 30.
Right.
That's incredible. That is incredible. That is the power of trust. People call it placebo or whatever, but like it's actually that relationship. This lady, I think empathy is one thing, and care and is one thing that AI can't do, right?
Right.
It can kind of mimic it a little bit, but it doesn't really care about you. It's doing algorithms and cranking numbers and doing all kinds of cool stuff. But the power of care and that empathy is where I think healing comes. Right. I was able to express to this lady, because I was a hospice doc for a while too, like 4 years doing hospice, and I said, I've helped families navigate those rocky waters. Like I just helped a younger guy who passed away from colorectal cancer, has 2 young kids and a sweet young wife. And that's hard, that's heavy.
Right.
And we just held space there for a minute. This young lady who's triggered emotionally by, just caring for a person whose husband is going through that, and I don't know. I think that's all of it is part of health and wellness. It's all connected, the biopsychosocial elements of our bodies and our minds and our wellness. And if we as physicians can just look past the science, still stay on science, but science is important. But look into the caring and the empathy and the connection, and do that. That's why I did Voyage. That's why I joined. That's why I started it, because I didn't feel like I could be the doctor that I wanted to be in the current healthcare system. It was just really hard. It was really hard.
Well, that was actually, as you were sharing that, I was thinking there must be this release that also happens for you as a doctor. Obviously, your day is very busy, even still at Voyage, like you're seeing patients back to back, that when you get that moment where you can feel the healing, you can feel the vulnerability and that trust building, it also probably boosts you to be like, okay, I'm ready to go to the next one. Like that was beneficial. That churning that turns those buttery robots, it probably doesn't get that ever because they're just never getting that moment to feel it with them, which is sad. That's really a hard thing when these people who are wanting to be doctors, they're wonderful, wonderful people, but never being able to exercise that type of care must also burden them to the point where it's just a mess of burdens that nobody can feel each other anymore.
Yeah, that is burnout. That is exactly what happens to the docs. They just burn out because they don't feel that connection. And you're right, it is deeply satisfying. I'm like, it's not like a pride satisfying. It's not like, oh, I did this thing, I'm awesome. It's just like, man, I'm so glad that lady got the care and the help that she needed to move through this. She was literally stuck thinking she's crazy. Every time she goes to the ER, they call her crazy, stop hyperventilating.
Right.
And it wasn't that she was crazy. It was very physiologic, but it was also psychologic, right? Because she's going through this really hard thing. But you got to get to both of those and then connect those dots so that she understands it, so that then she can heal that. Yeah, it's so satisfying, but it's also draining. So at the end of my days, like I'm not seeing as many patients as I used to, like on the machine, thank goodness. But I am very like emotionally, I'm like, that's why I go home and I like go for a walk and I sand wood and I like de-stress, because it's still draining, but it's very satisfying still. It's still beautiful. Healthcare is so neat. It's really about health and care. And I think AI can maybe bring health, right? All the evidence and all the dots to the health part, but it's just going to lack in the care space. Which is fine. I think we just use it, right? We just use it as a tool, like open evidence. That's awesome. And like other AI tools that are going to come down, it's going to literally change everything. Like I look forward to it. We use an AI scribe in the room. Like it's scribing for me while I'm talking and putting together an outline and a summary of our visit. Like it's wonderful. There's some wonderful tools out there. Super, super cool. What else, Holly? What else?
Let me think.
Those are some good stories. I have some good stories. There's some good ones. Just to highlight your points, you know. You are, you're in a certain age group. And so I'm curious, like, what are the challenges that you see in kind of our younger generation, maybe some of our teens or young adults, and what are some of the things that you would maybe see as like maybe pain points, maybe emotional, maybe physical or whatever?
Oh, this is a good question because I just spent 3 days with a group of youth girls.
Oh, yeah. Perfect.
So we got right into it. And I feel like the common thing, I am a big people watcher. I love watching other people just interact. I think it's so beautiful. But there was a common thing that I saw happen. And this group of girls was amazing at inclusivity. Like they are something I've never seen in just a group of girls of all ages, just so much love and care for everybody. But there was, as I kept talking to them and I was discussing school and going back to school and their summer plans, there was this common theme of them just talking about the connection, that making friends is so hard. And it was so interesting for me to sit there and talk to 4 different girls back to back and hear that they all had the same problem. But I understand that because I remember that. Like I remember being in school and that fear of just walking into a room and not being accepted for who you are. And I think that's something, especially with where we live, where there's a lot of common groups that you can get grouped into, whether it's religion, whether it's certain interests, that there becomes this isolation when you don't feel like you fit into any of those groups. Or maybe you feel like you fit into those groups, but that excludes you from different groups. And I feel like that's something that's just common, not even with youth, with just everyone, is this feeling of loneliness, this fear of loneliness when we're surrounded by people all the time. But there's some missing piece that's happening where people are no longer feeling connected.
So that lack of connection, I think, is a pathological thing. It is one of the things, it is a destroyer of health, physical and emotional. And so how can we implement that back? You know, what is the culprit here? And as you were speaking, I was thinking there are multiple forces at play pushing us away from decent, deep, awesome connection.
Right.
One of them recently, right, we had the COVID thing and we were all masking. And so socially, we just kind of created barriers to each other. And with this mask thing and then with, social distancing and all that. And psychologically, that did more damage for our youth and our society than probably anything in the history of men, because we've never before done anything like that, right? Even the flu pandemic, the major pandemics. So that's a big part of it. Is it's like a muscle, right? Social connection is like a muscle. If you don't use it, then you kind of get weaker at it, and then more scared of it, and then it's even harder to overcome. Like we kind of all sometimes struggle. Even the most gregarious, like outspoken, like talkative person, social butterfly, they have moments where they're like, man, that's really hard for me, but I'm going to go do it again.
Right.
And so I don't know. I think don't lose hope in trying to develop friendships. I think another thing that's at play here is this perfectionistic thought process, we're on social medias, we're on the things, and we're seeing all these perfect lives and all these perfect hairdos and all these like filters that make everybody look perfect, and everybody's perfect and not vulnerable, but they're perfect. And then there's a lack of this vulnerability space. And Brené Brown wrote a bunch of books on vulnerability, and she's wonderful, the power of vulnerability and all these things. And if you think of like any relationship, I haven't read much of Brené Brown, but my wife has, so she tells me about it, and it's wonderful. So just to give that for you. But she's awesome, and I like the thought process, and Shauna gives me good summaries, and so it's great. But what happens when you're vulnerable with somebody is, I don't know, there's a shedding of facades and various things that you feel like you have to keep up, right? And so I think if we could create more spaces for more vulnerability and more just kind of normalcy, like that would be really, really, really helpful.
So what does that look like? Because obviously you have people coming into your room that are probably very guarded. Like you as a doctor have to try and get that vulnerability almost every appointment with somebody. What are like the practical things that have helped you like jump the wall on that help you kind of break down those barriers with people?
Some people are really naturally good at this. I would say the power of friendship is one to develop. Like, what are the skills of friendship? Like, the fundamentals are express care, ask questions of the other person, and connect with them, right? And show interest in who they are. I think that really matters a lot. And then I'll just tell them a little bit about myself. So obviously, this is like with patient care, but like I also think like in life too. When I meet some perfect stranger in the exam room or even on the street or whatever, I'll often strike up a conversation, talk to them a little bit, ask them about their lives. And it's interesting, like initially there's a turtle shell, because we all have one, right?
Right.
Turtle shell. But then if you just tactfully chip away at that shell, like there's this buttery soft underbelly. We're going to stick with this buttery thing. It's so good. And when you get to that soft underbelly, then everybody has one. And I'll often like show them mine. I'm like, hey, here's my soft underbelly. Like a dog, like they kind of lay on their back and it's like, I got a soft underbelly, dog. Like just scratch it for a second. And so I think that is one of the keys, is just being willing to show some vulnerability, show them your soft underside. And I'll express some things and they're like, whoa, I thought you were a doctor. In the exam room, it's harder because there's an automatic dynamic. You're the doctor.
Right.
Like yours a thing. And I try to show them more humanistic things. Like, I'm just a normal person, dog. Like, I'm trying to help you and I just want to listen to you. And that's really helpful. In the friendship space, in the connection space, I think, again, just showing some care, connecting, and then expressing interest in them. And there's a lot of fear, I think, in that process of I suck at connecting or having friendship. And if we can root out fear, that's the key, right? That's the key. What's the antidote to fear? Do you know?
I was going to say, you've actually said this to me before where you're like, if you can walk into a room and if it's something you're afraid to do, you have to think about the love for the people. Like, why are you doing what you're doing? And that I've taken that because I still sometimes I'm like, whoa, I do not want to go. Like specifically some of our networking things I go do. I'm like, well, I am 22. I have no business being in a room with a bunch of like CEOs and owners. But I have a strong belief that Voyage is something worth sharing and getting it out there. And the positive reinforcement that has come back has only strengthened that. But the first time I was walking in, I remember thinking, okay, if I can just find the reason why I'm doing this, which is to better them and give them this opportunity to get good care, it allowed me to open my mouth and not be so afraid of doing whatever I was afraid of doing. And so I think exactly what you said of just, I think nowadays we think so inwardly, like we're so worried about what we're doing and how it's being perceived rather than thinking outwardly. Obviously, as a missionary, for those who know, going on an LDS mission, it's constantly you're told, like, look outside yourself, like serve outwardly. And it was actually funny because I served in England and people there are very closed off. So it was a constant battle to bring out the
huge
vulnerability.
Turtle shell.
Big turtle shell. And I realized that I had gotten really good at, once I came back here, almost making that excuse that people just don't want to open up and like almost denying that there was a soft underbelly. And it wasn't until I continued to meet people and put myself out there that I realized exactly what you said. Everyone has a soft underbelly, and almost the more big shell they have, the more need they have to get to that soft underbelly. I have a couple of friends in high school that looked really tough on the outside and put up this big tough guy face. And I don't know what it was about me, but I always seemed to be the one to like wiggle through the shell and get them to open up about their underbelly. And it was so shocking to find that a lot of them were the most broken inside. The ones who seemed so tough on the outside were so hurting on the inside. But that's not always an easy thing to get to people and actually get them to open up. So I feel like you got to be bold. You got to be bold on yourself first and kind of show them exactly what you said, the vulnerability in yourself, except that you're not perfect, and it opens that space for somebody else to say they're not perfect as well.
It's bold and it's love. It's care. I mean, that is the essence of healthcare, right? That's super cool. That's super cool that you have a talent for it too. That's neat. Some people are very talented at friendship, at connecting, and some people are less talented at it, but I would never tell yourself that you're bad at it, because we all have the potential for human connection. We're on this earth. Right. Come on, over here. We're doing it. And so that leads me to another little thing that I see. I have a couple teenagers in the house right now. Mm-hmm. I have 3 teenagers and one that's 22. He's still a teenager though. I am too, actually. I think we're all a bunch of teenagers. But anyway, I often hear them say something like, I'm just not good at that, or I can't do that thing, or I'm this or that, you know. When you speak the I am, those are creation words, like you're creating that.
Right.
And so I try to help them, like mental warfare is real, man. Like you can get locked into some wonky I ams, like I am stupid, I'm ugly, I am this or I'm that. And they can really harm you, really, really harmful. And so look at those internal dialogues and consider the ones that might not be light and truth and love, and squash those. Just get rid of them. Just look at them and say, that comes from a place of fear, darkness, anxiety, whatever it comes from. If it's not light, love, and truth, just like get rid of it. Just get rid of it.
It's actually, I had an example of this. I was playing tennis with my brother, who he's getting ready to play this tournament that he feels super underwhelmed about, or overwhelmed. He does not feel like he's ready to play. And we were playing, and I saw this switch in him as soon as we started to play like a practice match. This total shift happened, and he was super negative. I could just see his body posture had changed. And knowing him well enough, I knew in my mind, I'm like, he has the worst self-talk right now. Like so much negativity is going on. And I usually don't beat him, and I completely destroyed him. And so I'm walking up to him. I'm like, okay, so why did you just lose? Like, what was the thought process? And he was like, I don't know. And I'm like, he's 17, so not a ton of emotional awareness.
Gosh,
and I was like, luckily he was not mean to me, at least through this. But I was like, what was the things you were saying to yourself? Was it positive or was it negative? And he was, well, it's probably negative. And I told him, I'm like, you know a lot about psychology. He loves psychology.
Okay.
And I was like, what does positive self-talk do versus negative self-talk? And he was like this aha stupid moment of like, oh my goodness, I was so negative. And I was like, did it make you play better? He's like, no. And I think that's a very simple, but very almost profound realization for him, because in sports, it's like, put your head down and work so hard and blah, 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 blah. Like all the hard work is like aggressive. And it was this realization for this 17-year-old boy that actually like the words you say to yourself affected him more than how much practice he had put in, more than anything else on the tennis court was really what the dialogue was going in his own mind. And so then the next day we played again, and I almost wish I hadn't told him what I did, because he was amazing. Like he was so happy. He was happy to be there. And I asked him after, I was like, okay, so what changed? And he was like, I thought about all the things I know about like charity and love, and realized that when I got on a tennis court, I had none of that for myself. Like I never thought about myself in a graceful way. I only saw the negative. And it was like this proud little sister moment of like, I hope you think about that every day of your life. Like I hope he could realize, because he has anxiety, he struggles with other things. I'm like, please apply this to everything else. It's the talk that you say in your own mind is crucial to everything else that you do.
That is so cool. And how cool is that? Like you wiggled your way past his shell to the South Center building. Good job. But what a powerful teaching moment and what a sweet story. That's awesome. Like that, and this is why I love sports so much, because so much of it is psychological, and you have to learn how to break through some of those mental obstacles to push your body to the next level. And if it's your mental space that's holding you back, you got to figure that out, right? And
totally.
So I love sports because of that, because it forces you to like address it, you know, and look at it and kick it around and maybe squash it or, you know, re-sculpt it.
Yeah. Well, that's something fun that I've thought back is just, I think there's a really big similarity in comparison you can draw from the type of person you play sports as and the type of person when life gets hard you become.
Yeah.
Because it's the same thing. Like the pressure gets put on and the same person comes out. And so that's something now I think about in high school, because I played tennis and the state days were the worst days. Like the talk I had for myself was so negative. And I think about the parallel to the times that I felt the most down or the most pressure, I feel almost that same level of negativity. And so it's crazy to think that we have the capacity to flip it around. Like it took him one day to become a completely different tennis player. And I think the same thing applies for our life. Like if you just wake up and decide that you're done saying those things to yourself, obviously the habit's still there, but I think you could equally have a revolution in who you are and what you believe about yourself.
Totally. That's awesome. Let's continue to be sensitive with the way we talk to ourselves, like, and the way we talk to others.
Right.
Be careful with the "you are" statements, because it's the same as "I am," right? If you say "you are stupid," "you are dumb," "you are," and they believe it, then man, that can have power over that person and can really hurt them. So yeah, I think being really careful with the way that we deal with ourselves and then others, and showing more love and kindness in those spaces. That's super cool. What a cool story. Wow. I remember as a teenager, I was all nervous and puckered and, you know, all the teenager things. And then I was really shy. I was all those things. And then there was a time, I don't know what it was. I played a lot of sports, but there was a time where I just got really kind of silly, but kind of goofy, but very vulnerable. Like I stopped having to prove anything to anybody. I was just like, I'm okay being a total dork, right? Like it's okay with me. And that created such a relief on my brain and everything. I didn't feel like I had to meet anybody's expectations. I was just like totally comfortable with who I am and where I'm at. And it created space for others to do that around me too. And I think that would be a really great thing I see some of my daughter's friends, and some of them are just so naturally like at ease in their skin, and they're okay with their own imperfections and their own, all those things. And so creating space to just kind of goof around and be goofy and let go and play and kind of release some of that. I have to, you know, perform certain ways or be certain things, you know, kind of get rid of some of that expectation on yourself, I think is really, really healthy. My daughter Priya, when she was living with me, she's on a mission right now in Italy, but when she was living with me, she kept a little video vlog thing on me, and it was always me doing some random stupid video thing. Half the time I never knew she was filming me. She's just like sneaks it in. And I'm like, whatever. And I was like, wow, Priya, maybe don't show those, right? Like, but she kept a vlog called like Papa Juan or something. And all of her friends like joined the channel and saw me being totally ridiculous most of the time. And it turns out I'm more ridiculous than I realized. She just showed it to me in video form. I was like, whoa, I'm really goofy quite a bit. But at first I was like, no, maybe don't, you know. But then I was like, you know what? It's okay. I want those teenage kids to have permission to be goofy, even as doctors in the community, or, you know, to instead of showing them a perfect person that's, oh, I'm so perfect, I do these perfect things. Let me show them some vulnerability, some goofy, vulnerable, whatever. Like, it's totally fine. And so her friends, like, it became like this thing, like, we love your dad. He is so funny. And I would see them, and they would come over and I'd be like, oh, crap. but then they were like fun, and I was like, okay, well, it turns out you don't hate me, and so let's be friends. And so,
Right.
So that, I don't know. I think that's neat too. Maybe post some vulnerable stuff too online, and so show that you're not perfect,
Right.
and it's okay, you know.
There's actually one on our YouTube channel of you singing a song. So if anyone's listening, you can go find that on our YouTube channel as well.
No, it's like the only short we've ever done, and it was my daughter. She like recorded that. I was trying to wake her up to work out with me, and
Right.
she was like being lazy, and so I stole the uke off the wall and started singing random, just making it up.
It's a masterpiece. It really is. But that's something that I think is so cool working for Dr. John as well, is I have worked at a lot of different jobs, and a lot of them are more startup. So you get in there and there's a lot of pressure because there's only so few of you and you've got to perform well. And I kind of had that same mindset when I came, and it was a completely different atmosphere of just like lightheartedness and the caring for the individual. Like there's been times I still teach tennis lessons, and I remember us having that conversation that we could make my schedule work so I didn't have to cut out tennis lessons. And I remember thinking, I don't know any other like founder of a company who's like, oh yeah, come work for me, and then whenever you want, like you can go do tennis lessons. And that was just the beginning, because since then, like you are so catering to everyone as an individual and not just an employee. And I feel like that's just how you are with everyone. I meet people now all the time who know Dr. John, and they're constantly like, oh, he's such a good guy. Like everyone has very kind things to say about you, but I think it's because you are very good at seeing the individual and seeing their needs and listening. I think that's a big thing, is just you make it a very big point to us, even as staff, of like, don't be looking down as a patient's talking to you, like really focus on that engagement. And I think people are noticing that. I noticed that. And it's so fun to work for somebody who is that way, and also just be around people. Like you bring that, I see that in all of our staff at the clinic. It's like you bring out the silly side of them, which is not something that you usually find in the boss of or the owner of the place. Like brings out the silly in everyone.
They're awesome. I would say it's not just me. We have a culture of that. Our nurse practitioners are great. Dr.
Right.
Clark is great. You're great. Like all of our team members are fantastic. And it's just a neat culture, and it's neat to kind of proliferate that culture and keep it rolling, to take good care of people. It's so fun.
Which is so different than like walking into a hospital and seeing the staff there, and just, I don't know, I feel like the patients are almost on the same level of satisfaction as we are working there. Like we all leave feeling the same way, of just a really good experience.
Totally. Holly, this has been so fun. I feel like we've covered some fun ground. And hopefully there's some really good tips and tricks out there for folks as they have kind of listened to our spiel today. Right. And our discussion. And I've seen it quite a bit in my family. I wouldn't call myself an expert in all these spaces, but as a family doc, you deal with a lot of psychology stuff and a lot of mental health and emotional health, and it all bleeds over into our physical health. Right. And if we can find ways to be vulnerable, to be silly, to connect, and to fail, it's okay. Like let's fall on our faces sometimes, and let's smile about it, and don't smile because it sucks, and cry a little bit and then smile.
You're right.
But I just think that those are all some life skills that are really, really important. And as family docs, we help people navigate all of those spaces, right? And so, thanks for today. Thanks for kind of the interview. And it was really fun. And chiming in with your cool story of your brother. That's so fun. Thanks. And your other stuff. That's so great. Thank you. Thanks, Holly. All right. Well, thanks, guys. Thanks for chiming in. I hope you learned some cool stuff. Like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.